Is this what cowed Laman and Lemuel? When the many theorists start plotting a course for Lehi to reach the Western Hemisphere, most of which involve some type of island hopping or stopping for supplies and provision, rather than a straight voyage to the land of promise, as indicated in 1 Nephi chapter 18, verses 8 through 23. They usually leave out a very important factor, and that is the nature of Laman and Lemuel. In fact, from the very beginning, the two older brothers were not only opposed to all that their father Lehi wanted, but were very aggressive in their anger toward their younger brother Nephi. The older boys thought their father was a foolish old man and a visionary, and they did not want to leave Jerusalem in the first place. They rebelled and wanted to quit when sent back to get the brass plates that Laban refused and threatened to send his soldiers after them. Later, after Nephi convinced Ishmael to follow them into the wilderness while heading down to their father's tent by the Red Sea, the older brothers attacked Nephi with their new supporters, the sons of Ishmael. Later still, the older brothers didn't want to work on the ship the Lord instructed Nephi to build. They ridiculed their younger brother, his ability to build such a vessel, and didn't trust the Lord, or want to obey their father, and had no interest in a land of promise. They continually wanted to return to Jerusalem, wouldn't believe the city would be destroyed, or the people killed, or the survivors taken away to Babylon. They were convinced they knew more than their father, and were constantly angry with Nephi because they felt, as a younger brother, he was trying to take their birthright and rule over them. They became so angry with him that they thought to throw him from a cliff into the depths of the sea, and only the Lord's intervention of giving Nephi the power to seriously shock his brothers saved his life. Even when on board the ship, heading for the deep ocean, they became angry with Nephi and tied him up, threatening to kill him when a great storm arose. But the brothers were so intent on their rebellious anger, they refused to let Nephi go, even when faced with drowning in the depths of the sea. And so stubborn and long-lasting was their anger that only certain death turned them from their evil intentions of disposing of Nephi and returning to Jerusalem. But finally, fearful of destruction, they reluctantly released him. And Nephi took the Liahona that had earlier been provided Lehi by the Lord, and with it Nephi steered the ship back on course, continuing their voyage to the land of promise. Now this is where most theorists go astray. For the rest of the voyage, not a single word is mentioned about the trip, or of Laman and Lemuel's persistent rebellion, murderous attitude, and efforts to eliminate their younger brother. Since much of the sea voyage was still to be achieved, why is there not a single mention of Laman and Lemuel's rebellious nature that had so dominated their interaction for nearly 10 years? What on earth could possibly have cowed the brothers until they finally landed in the promised land? If most theorists are correct in Lehi's voyage of island hopping across the Pacific Ocean, putting in for supplies at tree-covered islands with picturesque beaches and lush tropical forests with crystal clear water, what possibly could have kept them from either jumping ship, as so many disgruntled sailors did much later during the Age of Sail? What possibly could have caused them to ignore the waving palm trees, inviting sun-bathed beaches and cool breezes, kissing the island's luxuriant interior, where food grew on trees and no work was necessary? Would Laman and Lemuel remain contentedly on board as they saw these islands pass by, while they suffered under what they considered the unbearable yoke of their younger brother's dominant rule? What could have kept the brothers from tossing Nephi overboard and setting into one of those beautiful, inviting islands, or even stranding Nephi and his supporters on an island and sailing back to Bountiful? After all, Laman's entire complaint, as was that of the Lamanite kingdom for the next 1,000 years, that Nephi had stolen the birthright and ruled over them when it had been the Lamanites' right to rule through Laman. So what kept Laman and Lemuel from doing any of this? What kept Laman and Lemuel from acting on their natural, rebellious natures throughout the rest of the voyage? What kept them from taking over the ship the rest of the long voyage to the land of promise? What cowed Laman and Lemuel into submission the rest of the journey across the ocean? The answer lies in the root of their voyage, and that the Southern Ocean has no islands or land masses to attract attention. It is unobstructed, high-speed, short ocean current that flows around the entire southern region of the planet. It is full of fast-moving, never-ending waves flowing eastward. Keep in mind that Laman and Lemuel had already seen the danger of attacking Nephi and leaving the ship to flounder where it could be swamped and all of them drowned. Had they been hopping from island to island across the peaceful Pacific, they would have had plenty of time and opportunity to hatch plots and attack again. But in the constantly moving Southern Ocean, with its largest and fastest moving current in the world, and its high, upsurging waves, and their crests crashing down on the ship, they would have been disheartened, unnerved, and intimidated. In the Southern Ocean, this mightiest of currents, not discovered until 1699 and extensively used by James Cook in 1772 and called the west wind drift, which is the fastest moving current in the world, and a wind current called the prevailing westerlies with its incredibly fast speeds that can reach 50 knots, with gusts reaching as high as 100 miles per hour. Today, this current is used by yacht clubs in world racing championships. And other than in outer space, there's nowhere you can be further from land than when in the Southern Ocean. Petrified, terror-stricken, horrified at the appalling scenes about them, Laman and Lemuel had already experienced such dangerous currents and winds during the storm that would have been cowed into submission, reluctantly putting their trust in Nephi to save them during this frightful part of the voyage. Hoping against hope, he would steer them out of these dangerous waters to land somewhere where they would be safe. These waters were why the Lord told Nephi to build a ship under the special instructions he gave him, for only he would know how a ship could be designed that could withstand the pounding of these southern waters in 600 BC as it ran before the wind, which led Lehi directly to the land of promise in the shortest and fastest course possible. Day after day, week after week, the rebellious brothers hung on for dear life. As the sturdy ship the Lord showed Nephi how to build took all that the Southern Ocean could give it and stood up to the constant pounding of waves and currents. There would have been no time to sit around and hatch plots of rebellion and mutiny for the brothers, who put no faith in the Lord nor understood his plans, for they would have been consumed with fear for their lives as the waves slammed into the ship, causing it to pitch fore and aft and roll or heel from side to side, dropping the freeboard almost into the water, spraying the deck and soaking everyone on board. So is this what cowed Laman and Lemuel? This short, fast-paced, frightening race along the Southern Ocean to the Western Hemisphere? Certainly looks like it would have. This would certainly explain why the Lord had to show Nephi how to build his ship in great detail, and why Nephi said they were driven forth before the wind. To see where this course would have caused Lehi to land in the Western Hemisphere, see the video, Is This Where Lehi Landed? Coming soon to the Nephi Code channel on YouTube.
Hey, like and subscribe to Grandpa's video right now. You know, the button's just right here. Woohoo! Okay. Yeah. Come on, push that button.